There is a moment, a very specific, quiet, almost invisible moment that happens in the life of every person who has ever walked from poverty into abundance, from obscurity into greatness, from fear into freedom. It is not the moment they made their first million. It is not the moment they signed the contract, or shook the right hand, or launched the right business. No. The moment I am speaking of happens long before any of that. It happens inside. It happens in the silence between one thought and the next. It happens when a person tired, perhaps broken, perhaps laughed at and dismissed, makes a decision so deep it rattles the bones of the universe. The decision that the words coming out of their mouth, from this day forward, will no longer be the words of a person who is losing. They will be the words of a person who has already won. I want to talk to you today about something that Florence Scovel Shinn understood better than almost any person who has ever lived. Something she wrote about, taught about, and breathed into the world with such clarity and force that her words are still shaking people awake nearly 100 years after she first put pen to paper. She understood that your word is your wand. She understood that what you say, you are building. She understood that every syllable you speak is a brick, and you are always, always constructing something, either a palace or a prison, with the material of your own voice. And if I had to start over, if someone stripped everything from me, took every dollar, every connection, every advantage, and stood me at the beginning of an empty road, I would not panic. I would not scramble. I would not beg. I would do what Florence Scovel Shinn taught. I would open my mouth. I would speak with faith and with fire. And I would repeat certain things, certain specific, exact, powerful things, until the invisible became visible, until the impossible became inevitable, until the millionaire that already existed inside me stepped forward into the light of the physical world. Let me take you back to the world Florence Scovel Shinn was born into. The year was 1871. The world did not believe that women had much to say that was worth listening to. The world did not believe that the human mind was the architect of human destiny. The world believed in hard work alone, in luck, in circumstance, in the accident of birth. And Florence looked at all of that, and she said quietly, but with absolute conviction, no. She said that the game of life is a game of boomerangs. She said that our thoughts, deeds, and words return to us sooner or later with astounding accuracy. She said that the subconscious mind has no sense of humor and takes everything you say literally. She said that you are either your own deliverer or your own destroyer, depending entirely on what you choose to put into the field of your own consciousness. These were not popular ideas. They were radical ideas. They were dangerous ideas, in a sense, because they placed the full weight of your destiny squarely on your own shoulders and refused to let you blame the economy, or your childhood, or your enemies, or the weather. Florence was not interested in excuses. Florence was interested in results. And the results she got, and the results she helped others get, were staggering. People came to her with debts they could not see the bottom of, and left with abundance. People came to her in despair, and left with direction. People came to her with empty hands, and through the practice she taught them, those hands filled. So what was the practice? What was the thing she repeated? What were the words? What was the method? Because that is what I want to give you today. Not a philosophy to admire from a distance. Not a beautiful idea to pin on your wall and forget. I want to give you the living, breathing, bone-deep practice that can take a person from zero to everything if they are willing to do one thing that most people are not willing to do. If they are willing to believe before they see. If they are willing to speak the truth of what they desire, as though it is already a fact, and absolutely refuse to contradict it with a single, careless, faithless, defeated word. The first thing I would repeat, if I had to start over, is this: there is always plenty for me. There is always plenty for me. Say it again. There is always plenty for me. Florence Scovel Shinn taught that the great enemy of abundance is the consciousness of lack. She taught that when a person walks through the world convinced that there is not enough money, not enough opportunity, not enough time, not enough love, they are not simply describing reality. They are creating it. They are speaking it into being, with every worried thought, every fearful word, every anxious conversation about bills and debts and shortages. The subconscious mind, that great and powerful creative force that operates beneath the surface of conscious awareness, hears the message of lack and says understood. And it goes to work building a world that matches the message. But the reverse is equally true, and this is where the miracle lives. When a person begins to walk through the world with the consciousness of abundance, when they begin to see plenty where others see poverty, when they begin to speak of provision where others speak of lack, the subconscious mind receives a new message, and it goes to work building a world that matches that message instead. The outer world, the visible, tangible, touchable world of money and opportunity and connection and success, begins to reorganize itself around the new frequency that the person is broadcasting. This is not magic. This is not wishful thinking. This is the law. Florence called it the law of supply. She said that all riches have their beginnings in the mind, and that the visible supply is simply the shadow of the invisible supply that a person has accepted for themselves in consciousness. To repeat that there is always plenty for me is not to lie to yourself. It is to align yourself with the deepest truth there is, that the universe is infinitely abundant, that supply is inexhaustible, and that your only job is to open the channel through which that supply can flow. I know what some of you are thinking. You are thinking, but you don't know my situation. You don't know how much I owe. You don't know what I've lost. You don't know how many times I've tried. And I want to say to you, I hear that. I hear the weight of it. But I want to ask you a question that Florence Scovel Shinn would ask. Has speaking about your lack ever made you richer? Has detailing your debts ever paid them? Has rehearsing the story of what you don't have ever brought you closer to what you want? And the honest answer, always, is no. The language of lack produces more lack. It is a perfect, self-fulfilling prophecy. The only way to break the cycle is to break the language. End quote. To dare even when it feels ridiculous, even when nothing in your visible world supports it, to speak the language of plenty. The second thing I would repeat, starting over with nothing, is this. My good now flows to me in avalanches of abundance. My good now flows to me in avalanches of abundance. Florence had a remarkable understanding of what she called the divine plan. She believed that every person has a divine plan, a perfect pattern of abundance, health, love, and self-expression that exists in the mind of God, in the infinite intelligence that underlies all of creation, and that the only thing standing between a person and the full realization of that plan is their own doubt, their own fear, their own insistence on looking at things as they are, rather than as they are meant to be. She believed that good does not trickle, it does not drip. When the channel is fully open, when the consciousness is fully aligned, when the words of faith are spoken with genuine conviction, good comes like a flood, like an avalanche, suddenly, overwhelmingly, in ways that reason cannot predict and the rational mind cannot explain. I have seen this happen. Perhaps you have seen it happen. Perhaps you have had those moments in your own life where everything shifted at once, where a single phone call changed the financial picture, where a single conversation opened a door that led to 10 other doors, where a single idea arrived in the mind that set off a chain of events leading to a level of abundance you had never thought possible. Florence would say those moments were not accidents. She would say those were the moments when the alignment was complete, when the consciousness finally matched the desire, when the words spoken in faith finally cracked through the hard shell of doubt and reached the creative soil beneath. To repeat that your good flows to you in avalanches of abundance is to train the mind in the expectation of overflow. Most people expect shortage. They have been trained by experience and by culture and by the fearful voices of worried people to expect that things will not be enough, that good things are rare, that wealth is difficult, and suffering is normal. Florence challenged every one of those assumptions. She said that difficulty and suffering are not natural. They are not the will of a benevolent universe. They are the product of a mind that has been tuned to the wrong frequency. Tune the mind to abundance, and abundance responds. It has no choice. It is a law, as exact and reliable as gravity. The third thing I would repeat, and this one may be the most important of all, is, I am always in the right place at the right time, successfully engaged in the right activity. I am always in the right place at the right time, successfully engaged in the right activity. Florence Scovel Shinn was a profound believer in what she called divine guidance. She believed that when a person surrenders the need to figure everything out with the limited, anxious, over-analytical conscious mind, and instead trusts the intuitive guidance of the infinite intelligence, they are placed exactly where they need to be, when they need to be there, doing exactly what will produce the greatest good. She called these moments of divine placement. She taught that there are no accidents in a universe governed by law. There are no coincidences. There are only meetings that were arranged, doors that were prepared, and people who were positioned in advance by a wisdom that sees the whole picture, while we can only see the corner we are standing in. Think about the implications of this. If you truly believed, not as a nice idea, but as a lived, felt, bone-deep conviction that you are always in the right place at the right time, how differently would you walk into a room? How differently would you approach a meeting, a negotiation, a conversation with a stranger? You would walk in with confidence. You would walk in without the gnawing anxiety of wondering whether you are missing out on something better somewhere else. You would be fully present, fully engaged, fully available to whatever opportunity or connection or insight that divine placement has arranged for you. And it is that quality of presence, that absolute, trusting, open-handed presence, that is the magnet for extraordinary outcomes. So many people miss their avalanche of good because they are so consumed with anxiety about where they are that they cannot receive what is right in front of them. They are physically in the room, but mentally somewhere else, rehearsing worst-case scenarios, running calculations of risk and loss, worrying about the past and fearing the future, completely unavailable to the miracle that is standing 2 feet away, waiting to introduce itself. The affirmation breaks that pattern. To repeat that you are always in the right place at the right time is to anchor your awareness in the present moment, to signal to the creative intelligence that you are available, that you are ready, that you are paying attention. The fourth thing I would repeat is, I have a wonderful work, in a wonderful way. I give wonderful service, for wonderful pay. This is one of Florence's most famous affirmations, and it is famous for a reason, because it works. It is precise. It covers every dimension of a healthy, abundant, working life. It does not just ask for money. It asks for the right work, performed in the right way, given in a spirit of genuine service, rewarded abundantly. It is a complete picture. It is a complete prayer. Florence understood something that the purely materialistic mind misses entirely. She understood that money, in itself, is not the goal. Money is the shadow of value. Money is the echo of service. Money is what shows up when a person finds their right work, the work that is uniquely theirs, the work that expresses their particular gifts and abilities and passions, and performs that work with love and enthusiasm and dedication. She said that those who are unfaithful to their talents, who are doing work that deadens them for the sake of a paycheck, who are trading their aliveness for the illusion of security, those people are cutting themselves off from the real source of their supply. Because the real source of supply is not the employer, not the market, not the economy. The real source of supply is infinite intelligence, and it operates through the channel of a person's authentic self-expression. When I think about the people I have met in my life who have built genuine, lasting wealth, not the kind that comes from a lucky break or a shortcut, but the deep, solid, regenerating kind, I notice something they all have in common. They are doing work they care about. They are doing work that matches something essential about who they are. They are not performing for a paycheck. They are expressing for a purpose. And the money, the abundant, sometimes staggering, often life-changing money, is the universe's way of saying, yes, yes, this is right. Yes, this is aligned. Yes, keep going. So if I were starting over, and I had to choose work, I would not ask what pays the most. I would ask, what am I here to do? What is the thing that, when I do it, makes me feel most fully myself? What is the contribution that only I can make in the particular combination of gifts and experience and perspective that I carry? And then I would speak it. I would affirm it. I would say, I have a wonderful work, in a wonderful way, I give wonderful service for wonderful pay, and I would keep saying it until the world rearranged itself to make it true. The fifth thing I would repeat, and this one requires real courage, is, I do not limit God. I do not limit God. Florence Scovel Shinn spent much of her teaching life fighting against what she called the poverty of imagination problem. She observed that people place entirely arbitrary limits on what they are willing to receive. They say they want abundance, but they have already decided, somewhere in the basement of their consciousness, exactly how much abundance is permissible, exactly what form it should take, exactly which door it should come through. And then when the universe tries to deliver something larger, or something that comes from an unexpected direction, they cannot receive it, because it does not match the limited picture they have already drawn. She said that the divine plan of your life is so much larger than any plan you could make for yourself. She said that infinite intelligence sees angles and pathways and possibilities that the human mind, with its fear and its conditioning and its habit of comparing itself to others, cannot begin to imagine. And she said that the only way to access that larger plan, to step into that larger life, is to surrender the small plan, to release the grip, to say, I do not limit God. Whatever is mine by divine right, let it come in the most magnificent way possible. I will not tell you how. I will not tell you through whom. I will not tell you when. I release this desire completely to the wisdom of the infinite, and I trust that what comes back will be greater than anything I could have orchestrated myself. This is the hardest thing for the analytical, strategic, planning mind to do. We want to control the how. We want to manage the process. We want to know the steps before we take them, to see the bridge before we cross it. And Florence said that is the limitation. That is where the small life lives. The large life, the extraordinary life, the life of genuine abundance and freedom and joy, begins on the other side of control. It begins in the place of radical trust. It begins when you fold your maps and say, take me where you know I need to go. I want to speak now about something Florence Scovel Shinn called the law of non-resistance. She considered it one of the most powerful laws governing human experience. She said that nothing can resist the person who has no resistance in them. She said that when you fight against your circumstances, when you struggle and strain and push against what is, you create friction, and friction is the enemy of flow. She said that the path to abundance is not through struggle, it is through alignment, it is through peace, it is through the kind of calm, settled, absolutely unshakable faith that says, I know my good is coming. I know the supply is here. I have spoken the word, and the word does not return void. This is a radical idea in a culture that glorifies hustle, in a culture that says you must outwork everyone, outstrain everyone, outgrind everyone. And I am not saying do not work. I am not saying do not put in effort. Florence never said that. What she said is that the effort must come from a place of inspiration rather than desperation. It must come from a place of love for the work rather than fear of the consequence. It must be fueled by faith rather than anxiety. Because when effort is fueled by desperation and fear, it carries the frequency of lack and it attracts more of what it fears. But when effort is fueled by inspired enthusiasm, When it is the natural overflow of a consciousness aligned with abundance and purpose, it carries a different frequency entirely, and it attracts results that effort alone could never produce. The sixth thing I would repeat, starting from nothing, is this: unexpected doors open for me. Unexpected channels are free. All that is mine by divine right now comes to me. All that is mine by divine right now comes to me. Florence was deeply interested in the idea of divine right. She believed that every person is entitled genuinely, cosmically, legally entitled to their full good, not a partial good, not a compromised good, not the good that is left over after everyone else has taken what they consider their share. The full, complete, overflowing, specific good that belongs to that particular soul in this particular lifetime. And she said that claiming that good, speaking it, affirming it, calling it forward with the authority of a soul that knows its own worth, is not greed. It is not arrogance. It is not wishful thinking. It is the proper use of a spiritual law. Think about the phrase unexpected doors. Florence loved this phrase because she understood that most people are looking for supply to come through the expected channels, the regular job, the familiar customer, the predictable income stream. And when those channels are working, that is fine. But she knew that the infinite is not limited to expected channels. The infinite can move money through a conversation with a stranger. It can move opportunity through a letter that arrives on an ordinary Tuesday morning. It can move a life-changing relationship through a wrong turn that takes you somewhere you were never planning to go. The person who says all that is mine by divine right now comes to me is giving permission for supply to arrive from anywhere, through anyone, at any time, in any form. They are removing the filters. They are opening all the windows. They are telling the universe, I am not particular about the how. I am particular only about the outcome. How many people are unknowingly blocking their supply by insisting it can only come through one door? How many people have a good that is trying to reach them from 50 different directions, but they have blocked 49 of those directions with their requirement that it must look a certain way, come from a certain source, follow a certain timeline? To repeat that unexpected doors open for you is to demolish every arbitrary wall you have built around your own receiving. It is to say to the universe, surprise me. And the universe, given that kind of open invitation, has a gift for delivering surprises that exceed every reasonable expectation. Now I want to talk about the spoken word in a deeper way. Florence Scovel Shinn called herself a metaphysician, but the practical core of her teaching was simply this: words have creative power. Not words spoken carelessly, not words spoken with the mouth while the heart believes something different, but words spoken in faith, spoken with feeling, spoken with the full conviction of a mind and heart that have chosen to believe in the unseen before it becomes the seen. Those words have the power to literally reshape reality. This sounds mystical, but consider the science of it for a moment. Every word you speak carries an energetic charge. Every thought you think creates a neural pathway. Every statement you make, repeated often enough, becomes a belief. And beliefs are not passive things. Beliefs are filters through which you interpret every experience, every conversation, every opportunity. A person who believes they are not wealthy enough will look at an opportunity and see risk. A person who believes they are abundantly supplied will look at the same opportunity and see possibility. Same opportunity, radically different responses. Because the belief determines the interpretation, and the interpretation determines the action, and the action determines the outcome. Florence was essentially teaching neuroscience before neuroscience had the language to describe itself. She was teaching that the brain is a belief machine, that it sees what it is programmed to see, that it finds what it is set to find. And the most powerful way to reprogram the brain, more powerful than positive thinking alone, more powerful than reading books about success, more powerful than vision boards or meditation or any other technique in isolation, is the spoken word, repeated with faith and feeling until it sinks below the level of the conscious mind and rewrites the subconscious program. This is why I say repeat. Not just think, not just believe. Repeat. Say it out loud. Let your ears hear it. Let the sound waves of your own voice carry it into the room. Let the repetition wear grooves in the mental landscape that redirect the river of your thought. Florence knew that the subconscious mind responds to sound in a way that pure thought cannot match. When you speak a thing aloud, you are doubly reinforcing it once in the thought and once in the hearing. You are surrounding yourself with the frequency of what you are declaring. The seventh thing I would repeat is, my supply comes from God, and God's supply is always abundant, always on time, always sufficient. My supply comes from God, and God's supply is always abundant, always on time, always sufficient. This is the foundational reorientation that Florence made in the minds of everyone who came to her. She said, stop looking to people as your source. Stop looking to the job, the market, the economy, the government, the lucky break, the right connection. Those are channels, those are vessels, but they are not the source. The source is infinite intelligence. The source is the divine supply that underlies all visible supply, the invisible abundance from which all visible abundance flows. When you know the source, when you know it in your bones, not just as a nice idea but as a living conviction, you stop being devastated when a channel closes. Because you know that a closed channel simply means the supply is going to find a new channel. It is redirecting. It is not stopping. How many people have been financially destroyed not by the loss of money, but by the loss of faith? How many people have watched a business fail or an investment collapse and concluded, from that evidence, that the universe is not on their side, that abundance is not real, that the rich get richer and the rest of us fight over the scraps? And how many of those people, from that moment of collapsed faith, began to speak the language of lack, the language of limitation, the language of a closed universe, and watched, in confusion and despair, as reality dutifully arranged itself to confirm what they were broadcasting? Florence would say, that is the real tragedy, not the money lost. Money is replaceable. The consciousness that knows the source and trusts the source, the consciousness that can look at an empty bank account and say with genuine peace, this is a temporary condition and not a permanent identity. This is a passing circumstance and not a defining reality. That consciousness is the wealth. Because that consciousness will always rebuild, always regenerate, always attract new channels, always find the supply that a trusting and faith-filled mind is prepared to receive. The eighth thing I would repeat, and this one requires not just faith but courage, is, I forgive everyone who has ever wronged me. I release every grievance. I hold nothing in my heart but goodwill and blessing for every person who has ever crossed my path. I forgive everyone who has ever wronged me. Now you may be wondering what forgiveness has to do with becoming a millionaire. And the answer, according to Florence Scovel Shinn, is everything. She said that unforgiveness is the most common single cause of financial blockage that she observed in her years of practice. She said that when a person carries resentment toward a business partner who betrayed them, toward a family member who withheld support, toward a competitor who won unfairly, toward an employer who dismissed them, toward themselves for mistakes they cannot release, that resentment is like a hand pressing against the pipe of supply and cutting off the flow. She used the metaphor of a vessel and a container. She said that good cannot pour into a container that is already full of bitterness. The bitterness must be poured out first. The container must be emptied of all the old pain, old anger, old blame, old shame, so that it can receive the new supply. And the mechanism for that emptying is forgiveness. Not a weak, reluctant, through gritted teeth forgiveness that says, fine, I forgive you, but don't think I'm forgetting. The real thing. The wholesale, total, liberating release of the entire weight of every wrong ever done to you, not because those people deserve it, not because what happened to you was acceptable, but because you deserve to be free, and unforgiveness is a chain that only ever imprisons the one who holds it. There is something else Florence said about forgiveness that is particularly striking. She said that when you bless your enemies, when you genuinely, sincerely wish well to the very people who wronged you, cheated you, underestimated you, abandoned you, you release a force of energy that returns to you multiplied. She said that blessing others is never a loss, it is always a gain. Because the act of blessing comes from the consciousness of overflow, and whatever consciousness you operate from is what the law returns to you. This is the opposite of what the ego says. The ego says they don't deserve a blessing after what they did to you. The ego says, hold your ground, protect your heart, let them have nothing from you. But Florence said, the ego is the enemy of abundance. The ego is the guardian of the small life. The soul, the part of you that knows the infinite, the part that is connected to the source, the soul, knows that there is more than enough, that another person's gain is never your loss, that the universe is not a zero-sum game, and that the spirit of generosity and goodwill is not weakness, but the most powerful force available to a human being. The ninth thing I would repeat, and I want you to really feel this one, is, I am not moved by what I see. I am not moved by what I feel. I am moved only by what I believe. I am not moved by what I see. I am not moved by what I feel. I am moved only by what I believe. This is the statement of an absolute champion. This is the statement of someone who has decided to live by faith and not by sight. And Florence Scovel Shinn believed that faith, not religious faith necessarily, though she was deeply spiritual, but the faith of expectation, the faith of conviction, the faith of someone who simply knows that what they have spoken in the invisible is becoming real in the visible, that faith is the mightiest creative force available to a human being. The world will constantly try to convince you of what it sees. The bank statement will try to convince you. The conversation with the worried friend will try to convince you. The news will try to convince you. The gap between where you are and where you want to be will try to convince you. And the person who is moved by all of that evidence, who adjusts their expectation every time the visible world reports something discouraging, that person will always be a creature of circumstance, always at the mercy of whatever is happening around them, always reactive rather than creative. But the person who has made the decision, I am not moved by what I see, that person becomes a cause rather than an effect. That person stops being shaped by the world and starts shaping it. Because they hold, in the interior of their being, a picture that is clearer and more compelling and more real to them than anything the outer world is currently showing them. And the outer world, which is always catching up to the inner world, eventually inevitably comes into alignment with the picture that has been held with faith. Florence told story after story of this. People who had nothing on paper, who were surrounded by evidence of failure and lack, who by every visible measure should have given up, and who instead held the inner picture, kept speaking the affirmation, kept thanking the universe for what was not yet visible, and watched in astonishment as the outer world reorganized itself around their faith, not gradually, often suddenly, often completely. The avalanche, again, the sudden flood of good that was the reward for holding faith through the desert. There is something I want to say about the practice of gratitude here, because Florence was a great teacher of it. She said that gratitude is the most direct path from lack to abundance that she had ever found. She said that when you genuinely give thanks for what you have, not in a superficial, going through the motions way, but in a real, felt, heart-deep appreciation for every good thing in your life, no matter how small, you activate the law of increase. She said that what you are grateful for multiplies. She said that the consciousness that can find beauty and blessing in what it has is the consciousness that the universe trusts with more. This is why the 10th thing I would repeat, perhaps the simplest and deepest of all, is thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for the supply that is on its way. Thank you for the doors that are opening. Thank you for the right work and the wonderful pay. Thank you for the unexpected channels. Thank you for the divine guidance that is leading me step by step toward my perfect good. Thank you for the people who are being moved, right now, by forces beyond my understanding, to bring me exactly what I need. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Gratitude as a practice, not as an afterthought, not as something you do once a good thing happens, but as a constant, living, breathing orientation toward life completely changes the chemistry of your experience. It changes what you notice. It changes what you attract. It changes who shows up and what they offer. It changes the texture of ordinary days. A person who lives in genuine gratitude is a person who is radiating a frequency that is simply magnetic. And in the field of that magnetism, opportunity and abundance and the right people and the right ideas gather naturally, the way iron filings gather around a magnet. Not because of effort, not because of manipulation, because of resonance. Now let me speak directly about the millionaire consciousness. Because the word millionaire is in our title, and I do not want to be coy about it. Florence Scovel Shinn believed in material abundance. She did not believe that spiritual people should be poor. She did not believe that money is spiritually suspect, or that suffering is holy, or that a good person should make do with less. She believed that the divine plan for every human being includes every good thing, and she was very clear that money is a good thing. When it is used as a channel of service, when it flows through a person who knows its source and holds it lightly and shares it generously. She said that the millionaire consciousness is not primarily about the number. It is about the quality of thinking. It is about the absolute, unquestioned, bone-deep expectation of abundance. It is about the person who walks into a room and does not wonder if they belong there. It is about the person who sees an opportunity and does not spend 3 weeks talking themselves out of it. It is about the person who, when the inevitable setback comes, because setbacks come for everyone, does not take it as evidence that they are not meant for wealth. Instead, they take it as a detour, and they find the new road, and they keep moving, and they keep speaking, and they keep expecting. Florence told a story that has always stayed with me about a woman who came to her completely broke, behind on rent, terrified. And Florence gave her a very specific affirmation to repeat. She told her to say, "I have all that I need to meet all my needs." And the woman said, "But I don't. I have nothing." And Florence said, "Exactly. That is why you say it. You say it not because it is currently true in the visible world. You say it because you are making it true in the invisible world, which always precedes and produces the visible world. You say it until your subconscious hears it, accepts it, and goes to work, rearranging reality to match the word." The woman went home and she said it. She said it that night and the next morning and throughout the next day. And on the second day, a call came. A check arrived. An unexpected source opened. The supply came not through the channel she expected, not in the amount she thought it would take, but exactly sufficient, exactly on time, exactly as promised by the law. Florence was not promising that the affirmation would always produce exactly what you expect, in exactly the time you expect it. She was promising something more reliable than that. She was promising that a consciousness aligned with abundance and operated by faith will always find supply, not sometimes, not when luck is running, always. Because the law is exact, and the law does not have bad days. Let me speak now about what Florence called the word of power. She said that there are certain statements that, when spoken with full faith and genuine feeling, cut through every obstruction with the sharpness of a blade. She said that the most powerful of these is, "Thy will be done," not because it is passive or resigned, but because it is the ultimate statement of trust in a wisdom higher than the human mind. It is the statement that says, "I know what I desire, and I am releasing that desire to the wisdom that knows how to bring it about better than I do. I am not giving up. I am stepping out of the way. I am letting the infinite do what the infinite does, which is to produce outcomes that exceed my highest asking." She paired this with another phrase she loved, "Don't look at the mountains." This comes from the teaching that you do not spend your energy analyzing and worrying about the obstacles. The obstacles are the mountains. And when you stare at the mountains, when you calculate how high they are, how many there are, how hard they will be to climb, you are directing your creative energy into the problem rather than into the solution. You are feeding the obstacle with your attention, and what you feed grows. Instead, speak to the mountain. Tell it to move. Tell it with the authority of a person who knows that the word spoken in faith has more power than any visible obstacle. Tell it, there is no obstacle in my divine path. There is no loss, no delay, no obstruction in my divine path. All that is mine comes to me now, swiftly, easily, peacefully, abundantly. And then stop looking at the mountain. Turn your eyes toward the good that is coming, and let the mountain dissolve in its own time, in its own way, by the power of the word spoken in faith. The 11th thing I would repeat is something Florence considered absolutely essential. I give generously and gratefully. I give generously and gratefully. She taught that the law of giving and receiving is one of the most precise laws governing human experience. She said that a closed hand cannot receive. She said that the person who hoards from fear, who clutches their money, their time, their knowledge, their love, their energy, keeping it all in and letting nothing out, is demonstrating the consciousness of lack and will attract more lack. But the person who gives freely, who gives first, who gives without waiting to see whether the return is guaranteed, that person is demonstrating the consciousness of abundance and will attract abundance in return. This does not mean giving foolishly. Florence had no patience for the idea of giving more than you have in an attempt to manipulate the universe into giving back. She said that giving should always feel like an expression of love and faith, never like a transaction or a leverage. Give because you know the source is infinite and the supply is inexhaustible. Give because you genuinely want to see another person blessed. Give because the act of giving makes you larger, freer, more aligned with the flow of the universe. And then release it. Do not track the return. Do not calculate the payback. Simply trust the law. The law has never failed. It will not fail for you. And now I want to come to the place in this speech where I speak most directly to you, not as a general audience, but to you, specifically, wherever you are, in whatever state you have arrived here. Maybe you are just beginning. Maybe you have tried 100 things and watched them all fall short. Maybe you are carrying the weight of debt that makes it hard to breathe. Maybe you have been told by others, by experience, by the brutal arithmetic of your current circumstances, that wealth is not for you. And I want to say what Florence Scovel Shinn would say. I want to say it with the same quiet, firm, unshakable certainty that she carried through every conversation with every person who came to her in desperation. And I want to say, it is not too late. It is never too late. The law does not check your age, or your credit score, or your history, or your family of origin, or the mistakes you made before you knew better. The law checks your consciousness. The law looks at what you are speaking, and what you are expecting, and what you genuinely believe in the depths of your being. And the exact moment that consciousness shifts, the outer world begins to shift with it. Florence had a phrase for this moment. She called it the day of appointed fulfillment. She said that there is a perfect moment for every good thing, and that it is not delayed by circumstance, but only by the readiness of the consciousness that must receive it. The supply is always there. The opportunity is always there. The divine plan is always there. But the person must come into alignment with it. The person must reach the day of appointed fulfillment in their own consciousness. And when they do, when the speaking matches the believing, and the believing matches the receiving, the supply comes in the most extraordinary and often completely unexpected ways. So what is the practice, practically speaking? Let me make it simple. Let me give it to you the way Florence would give it directly, practically, without unnecessary mystification. Every morning, before you do anything else, before you check your phone, before you read the news, before you get swept into the demands of the day, you spend 15 minutes speaking. You speak your affirmations. You speak them out loud. You speak them as though they are already true, because in the only dimension that matters, the dimension of the infinite intelligence that creates visible reality, they are already true. You speak them with feeling. You speak them with gratitude. You speak them as the complete, abundant, divinely guided person you already are in spirit, before the physical world has caught up to that truth. And then throughout the day, whenever a thought of lack tries to take hold, whenever the old programming sends up a signal of fear or worry or hopelessness, you catch it. You do not entertain it. You do not give it a chair and a cup of tea and let it stay for hours. You notice it, and you immediately replace it with the word of power, with the affirmation, with the chosen statement of faith. You literally speak it even under your breath, even silently in your mind, and you keep going. You refuse to camp in the negative thought. You acknowledge it has appeared, and you move through it with the energy of the word. And at the end of the day, before sleep, which is the most powerful time for subconscious reprogramming, when the threshold between conscious and subconscious is at its thinnest, you give thanks again. You speak gratitude for the good of the day, however small, however hidden. You thank the infinite for the supply that was present, for the guidance that directed you, for the doors that moved even slightly, for the people who crossed your path, for the ideas that arrived. You end the day in the consciousness of abundance, so that your sleeping mind can continue the work throughout the night. Florence Scovel Shinn called the night hours the hours of divine instruction. She said that much of the work of realignment happens in sleep, that the subconscious, freed from the interference of the conscious mind, operates on the impressions given to it at bedtime and makes its arrangements for the day that follows. The person who falls asleep in worry programs the night with lack. The person who falls asleep in gratitude and faith programs the night with abundance. The morning that follows each of these is a different morning, receiving a different day. This is the practice. This is what I would repeat. This is what Florence Scovel Shinn would tell you if she were standing here right now, this woman who changed the lives of thousands with nothing more than the radical idea that your word is your wand, that you are the captain of your own ship, that the game of life plays according to fixed laws that anyone can learn and anyone can use, and that the supply of infinite intelligence is available to every soul that chooses, with full conviction and unapologetic faith, to claim it. Let me close with this. Florence had a favorite benediction. She ended many of her teachings with a blessing, a spoken word of divine completion, a final affirmation that gathered everything together into a single, clean, powerful statement of faith. And I want to give you that word now, to carry with you from this moment forward. Infinite Spirit, open the way for my great abundance. I am an irresistible magnet for all that belongs to me by divine right. I am a clear channel for all the good that the universe has designed for my life. My supply is inexhaustible, my good is unstoppable, my path is illuminated, and my word does not return to me void. I am grateful, I am ready, I am open. Let the miracle begin. That is the word. That is the practice. That is what Florence Scovel Shinn put into the world in her books and her lectures and her one-on-one conversations with the desperate and the broken and the quietly hopeful. And it is what I am putting into the world today for you. Not as a formula to manipulate the universe, but as an alignment tool, a way of tuning your consciousness to the frequency of the abundance that is already yours, already prepared, already moving toward you through channels you cannot yet see. If you had to start over tomorrow with nothing in your pockets and nothing on paper and nothing but the air in your lungs and the thoughts in your mind, this is what would make the difference. Not a brilliant business strategy, though that has its place. Not a high-powered network, though relationships matter. Not a perfect plan, or a lucky break, or a favorable market. The thing that would make the difference, the one variable that Florence Scovel Shinn spent a lifetime proving, is the consciousness you carry, the words you speak, the expectation you hold, the faith you refuse to surrender, no matter what the outer world is currently reporting. Say it until you believe it. Say it until it is no longer a declaration of faith, but a simple statement of fact, as obvious and natural as telling someone your own name. Say it until the day your bank account catches up with your consciousness, and you look at the number and you think, of course it happened. Of course it always had to happen. Because the law is exact, and I spoke the word, and the word never returns void. That is the teaching. That is the gift. That is the legacy of Florence Scovel Shinn. Take it, use it, speak it, believe it, and watch with open eyes and an open heart and an utterly unsurprised soul as the avalanche of your good comes rolling in. And then throughout the day, whenever a thought of lack tries to take hold, whenever the old programming sends up a signal of fear or worry or hopelessness, you catch it. You do not entertain it. You do not give it a chair and a cup of tea and let it stay for hours. You notice it, and you immediately replace it with the word of power, with the affirmation, with the chosen statement of faith. You literally speak it even under your breath, even silently in your mind, and you keep going. You refuse to camp in the negative thought. You acknowledge it has appeared, and you move through it with the energy of the word. And at the end of the day, before sleep, which is the most powerful time for subconscious reprogramming, when the threshold between conscious and subconscious is at its thinnest, you give thanks again. You speak gratitude for the good of the day, however small, however hidden. You thank the infinite for the supply that was present, for the guidance that directed you, for the doors that moved even slightly, for the people who crossed your path, for the ideas that arrived. You end the day in the consciousness of abundance, so that your sleeping mind can continue the work throughout the night. Florence Scovel Shinn called the night hours the hours of divine instruction. She said that much of the work of realignment happens in sleep, that the subconscious, freed from the interference of the conscious mind, operates on the impressions given to it at bedtime and makes its arrangements for the day that follows. The person who falls asleep in worry programs the night with lack. The person who falls asleep in gratitude and faith programs the night with abundance. The morning that follows each of these is a different morning, receiving a different day. This is the practice. This is what I would repeat. This is what Florence Scovel Shinn would tell you if she were standing here right now, this woman who changed the lives of thousands with nothing more than the radical idea that your word is your wand, that you are the captain of your own ship, that the game of life plays according to fixed laws that anyone can learn and anyone can use, and that the supply of infinite intelligence is available to every soul that chooses, with full conviction and unapologetic faith, to claim it. Let me close with this. Florence had a favorite benediction. She ended many of her teachings with a blessing, a spoken word of divine completion, a final affirmation that gathered everything together into a single, clean, powerful statement of faith. And I want to give you that word now, to carry with you from this moment forward. Infinite Spirit, open the way for my great abundance. I am an irresistible magnet for all that belongs to me by divine right. I am a clear channel for all the good that the universe has designed for my life. My supply is inexhaustible. My good is unstoppable. My path is illuminated, and my word does not return to me void. I am grateful. I am ready. I am open. Let the miracle begin. That is the word. That is the practice. That is what Florence Scovel Shinn put into the world in her books and her lectures and her one-on-one conversations with the desperate and the broken and the quietly hopeful. And it is what I am putting into the world today for you. Not as a formula to manipulate the universe, but as an alignment tool, a way of tuning your consciousness to the frequency of the abundance that is already yours, already prepared, already moving toward you through channels you cannot yet see. If you had to start over tomorrow with nothing in your pockets and nothing on paper and nothing but the air in your lungs and the thoughts in your mind, this is what would make the difference. Not a brilliant business strategy, though that has its place. Not a high-powered network, though relationships matter. Not a perfect plan, or a lucky break, or a favorable market. The thing that would make the difference, the one variable that Florence Scovel Shinn spent a lifetime proving, is the consciousness you carry, the words you speak, the expectation you hold, the faith you refuse to surrender, no matter what the outer world is currently reporting. Say it until you believe it. Say it until it is no longer a declaration of faith, but a simple statement of fact, as obvious and natural as telling someone your own name. Say it until the day your bank account catches up with your consciousness, and you look at the number and you think, of course. Of course it happened. Of course it always had to happen. Because the law is exact, and I spoke the word, and the word never returns void. That is the teaching. That is the gift. That is the legacy of Florence Scovel Shinn. Take it, use it, speak it, believe it, and watch with open eyes and an open heart and an utterly unsurprised soul as the avalanche of your good comes rolling in.